it's just not, there's just not enough room to make up. The math isn't there.
No, the math doesn't work. Numbers don't lie. I'm a numbers guy. You're a numbers guy. Because the keys depend upon a rational, pragmatic electorate deciding based on governance whether the incumbent party should get 4 more years. And we've seen the explosion of some trends that have existed before, but not to this extent. Disinformation. You know, Elon Musk is, I don't know how many hundreds of billions he has. We have never seen to this scale the agitation of 3 trends that have been very deeply embedded in American history: misogyny, racism, and xenophobia. You know,
it truly is astonishing to watch as the expert class and their credibility crumbles before our eyes, right? Ann Selzer, the Gold Star pollster, has never been wrong in Iowa, except she was. They were all wrong, and nobody's going to be listening to these people ever again. But I don't think there is a better example of that than a guy by the name of Allan Lichtman. And if you're not familiar, I'm sure many of you are, but this is the presidential historian with the 13 keys model that people say has never been wrong in predicting a presidential election. Now, when you delve into his actual track record, you will find he's been wrong a couple times, but he shifted the goalpost to claim he was still right. But still, nonetheless, I don't think it's necessarily a bad model in itself, but it's important to remember this guy is a gigantic Democrat. And I was saying this entire election cycle that it's not that his model is wrong. It's that he is so biased. He is not interpreting these 13 keys correctly. People said I was coping in favor of Trump. Well, look at what happened, right? You see his response here on election night. But funny enough, instead of just admitting to his bias that he got it wrong, Allan Lichtman is now going out and providing some of the most hilarious excuses you will ever hear for why his official election prediction, the political Nostradamus, as people call him, was so catastrophically wrong. But first, folks, do us a big favor. Before we all get together and laugh at Allan Lichtman, please hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And why should you subscribe? Because we got a great 4 years ahead, and doing so ensures we can keep bringing you these videos. Support the work. Let's get to 400,000 subs before the end of the year. It's totally free. All you got to do is hit that red button. And with that said, let's first kind of explain for people who are not familiar what the 13 keys model is. And this whole model basically revolves around what I would call the common sense factors that predict who's going to win an election, which is to say that if the economy is doing well and generally things are stable and doing okay in the country, then the incumbent party will win the election. If the country's in chaos and the economy is bad, then the challenger wins the election. Pretty common sense. Like I said, I don't think it's necessarily a bad model in itself, but basically here, if 5 or fewer keys are false, then the incumbent party will win because the country is stable. If 6 or more are false, then this indicates a political earthquake and the incumbent party is predicted to lose. So here are the 13 keys. Number 1 is the party mandate. That's if after the first midterm election, the incumbent party holds on to more seats in the House of Representatives. Obviously, that is one that was false for Kamala and the Democrats because the Republicans won the House in 2022. Secondly is no primary contest. There is no serious contest for the incumbent party nomination. Now, I would look at the fact that they literally switched out the candidate and say, yeah, there was a serious primary contest, but hilarious enough, I'm pretty sure Allan Lichtman said there was no serious primary contest. Like I said, this is why this guy is so insanely biased. He can't even read his own model correctly, but that's that one. Incumbent seeking re-election. The incumbent party candidate is the sitting president. That is obviously not true. So that is another one that is false even for Allan Lichtman. There is a strong short-term economy, which is to say the economy is not in recession. Now, what I was saying the entire time is obviously the economy is a big factor in who wins the election. But even if it's true that GDP growth is up and, the economy is not officially in recession, the voter perception, American viewpoint of the economy is not good, and it's going to be a factor that favors Trump. Allan Lichtman said, no, look at the numbers. Okay, short-term economy and long-term economy apparently both most good for Kamala Harris. According to him, there is major policy change. The incumbent administration affects major changes in national policy. That's kind of subjective, whatever. Let's go on. No social unrest. There is no sustained social unrest during the term. This kind of, again, goes both ways, because you could say, what about the crime? What about the Palestine riots? It's subjective. That's the problem with his entire model, but whatever. Let's just say that that is true for the sake of argument. No foreign or military failure. The incumbent administration suffers no major failure in foreign or military efforts. Okay, obviously that is false, right? Afghanistan, Israel, Ukraine. But what did Allan Lichtman say again? He was so insanely biased. No. Those are all not major foreign policy failures. What? But anyways, I think Allan's final prediction is he said Kamala was going to win because only 4 of the keys were false for her, to which I was saying the entire time. And some people are saying I'm dumb for this. First of all, the economy. You might say it's not in recession or whatever, but voter perception of the economy is not good. Now, you may say, okay, but his model is based on objective economic statistics. So how is he going to factor for that? Well, that's the thing, is he did do this in 1992. You look at the 1992 election, officially the economy was not in recession. The economic keys should have favored George Bush, but even Allan Lichtman went out and said that voter perception of the economy was bad. So I said, if Allan Lichtman changed his model, which he does, he changes the goalposts. He's not really that objective, but if he changed the model to accommodate that change back then, it is obviously true that in 2024, even if they keep saying the economy is good, the voters don't feel it. So I said voter perception is most important. It's not perceived as well. I was telling people that's not going to work out for them. No foreign policy failure. Obviously, Afghanistan was a foreign policy failure. You combine that with the fact that there is a perception that there are wars all around the world because of Israel and Ukraine. Yeah, foreign policy was not working in favor of the Democrats in this election. But that was another thing. Allan Lichtman said there was no primary contest. I said, look, I mean, obviously there was, right? They had to switch out the candidate. That is obviously, he said no. Again, this is how insanely biased it was. And after they switched out the candidate, it was frankly pretty obvious he was just trying to change the keys to hope Kamala Harris was going to win. Because take a listen to what he said about Joe Biden when he was still in the race.
Sports talk radio, it may be entertaining, but it has no scientific basis.
So what is the impact, you think?
Zero. That's why we rely on the 13 keys, which tap into the structure of how elections really work. And they show that Democrats' really only chance to win, contrary to everything you've heard, is with Biden running.
So he said Democrats' only chance to win back then. This is after the debate when everyone was like, they need to switch Biden out of the race. Their only chance is keeping Biden in the race. Now, think what you will of this. Okay, I would argue what we saw at June 27th was a major scandal and Joe Biden's mental decline was the scandal. But he says, okay, incumbent advantage would still apply. Biden would have won. But then right as they switch in Kamala Harris, again, he shifted the goalposts of his keys to say, no, actually, Kamala's still going to win, even though I just said Biden was their only chance at winning. So that goes to show, despite the fact everyone was saying this guy was objective, I said it is so obvious. He's screaming from the mountaintops. Everyone knows he's a big Democrat, that he's biased in the way he is interpreting his own keys. But I was very curious to see if Allan Lichtman would actually take accountability in the right way. Okay, obviously he was wrong. He can't run around and say that he was somehow right. But all you had to do, again, we read off those 13 keys. All you have to say is you interpreted them wrong, which is true. Okay, because if you interpreted the 13 keys accurately, which I, again, think is a pretty solid model with maybe a few minor changes to it, predicted Trump correctly to win the election. But instead of doing that, okay, this guy's such a fool. Okay, the fact that this guy's taken seriously as a history professor is so hilarious, because Allan Lichtman is going on now and claiming that the 13 keys were correct, but apparently it is like widespread misogyny, racism, and xenophobia that changed the election. And that's the reason why he got it wrong, not because he interpreted the 13 keys wrong. Take a listen.
And the keys, because the keys depend upon a rational, pragmatic electorate deciding based on governance, whether the incumbent party should get 4 more years. And we've seen the explosion of some trends that have existed before, but not to this extent. Disinformation. You know, Elon Musk is, I don't know how many hundreds of billions he has. He has been the director of misinformation. 2 billion views of his spreading of disinformation, not just about the economy, but about immigrants, about minorities. We've never seen disinformation at this scale. Next, we have never seen to this scale the agitation of 3 trends that have been very deeply embedded in American history: misogyny, racism, and xenophobia. You know, the first anti-immigrant law was 1798, and Donald Trump wants to revive.
He says that his keys were wrong because the electorate is no longer pragmatic enough, right? They're not making rational choices anymore. Now it's just racism, xenophobia. I'm at a loss for words there. Because again, it shows you the bubble these people live in. It is so obvious. No, the electorate still is fully pragmatic. They didn't like the state of the economy. They didn't like the crime. They didn't like immigration. Like everything, when you break down this election, actually shows how pragmatic the American electorate were. But this guy is so insanely liberal and so insanely biased, he can't see that. He can't really truly admit that he just read his model wrong, because that would suggest that he is biased. No. It's just the American voters are no longer thinking with their brains. Just so ridiculous. And he's doubling down on this, by the way. It's just so funny.
To a new level. He's also brought blatant racism to a new level. You know, things like, I'm as Greek as Giannis Antetokounmpo, the black Milwaukee Bucks basketball star who was born in Athens of African parents, is a Greek citizen and was the Greek flag bearer at the Paris Olympics. But because he's black, he couldn't possibly be really Greek.
Do you think the issue is that Trump is beyond the keys and Trump changed the locks?
I think that's a little too glib. It's not just Trump. Trump blipped out tomorrow. Nothing much would change. It's the deeper forces that I outlined of deception, racism, misogyny, and xenophobia, which are by no means limited to Trump.
It's like, dude, once again, okay, it's not that Trump is quote unquote beyond the keys. It's that clearly, even by the way you're interpreting this situation, you are such an insanely biased liberal that you can't see reality. It's very funny because Allan has this whole thing about how you have to be objective with the keys. Nobody can turn the keys besides, like, I know, like, this is his whole thing. He claims he's not biased. He's so clearly not, right? Clearly not. Again, this guy is the same character who said Biden was the Democrats' only chance. And then when Kamala was the candidate, he shifted to say, no, like, Kamala's going to win. That's not an objective guy. Okay. And even in defeat, when he said he's going to try to figure this out, he attributes racism and xenophobia instead of just saying, oh, I read the keys wrong. It's just hilarious. This guy, I hope he enjoys retirement, because he should never be taken seriously as a historian ever again. You can use his model, but certainly do not listen to the way he interprets his own model, because as you can see, he lives in such a bubble. He is such a biased fool that he can't see straight. Right? His head is so far up, you know where, that he can't see. So it is what it is. Again, this photograph right here, it's just so glorious. Okay. It's just so glorious. So there you have it, guys. Let me know your thoughts though in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you're new. And until next time, God bless, laughing at Allan Lichtman, and peace.